Hi, I'm Leisha Grabinski. This is Saskatchewan. Saskatoon is the province's largest city, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. The city's population hit 316,000 people. That makes us a lot bigger than Regina. Overall, a growing city is a good thing. It means there are jobs and that people want to build a life here. But they need to live somewhere, and that is a bit tricky. Our housing stock has not kept pace, and prices have shot up. My colleague, Teresa Kleem, spoke to CBC Municipal Affairs reporter Phil Tank about what's happening.
Okay, Phil, how tight is the market right now?
Well, we know basically that a market gets tight when there's more people than there are houses, right? If there aren't enough houses to meet demand, prices do go up. And we know we've added a lot of people in Saskatoon the last few years, and we can't keep up with the number of houses. So that's what creates a housing shortage. So that's kind of what we're experiencing right now.
And that's mostly what's driving the housing shortage, that we just see more and more people moving here?
Well, yeah, in Saskatoon, very much so. So the city puts out a report or put out a report last month looking at what does the inventory look like? How much land does the city own within city limits that we could one day service for housing and that developers could build on? And that report also revealed that as of July 1st last year, Saskatoon's population hit 316,000 people, which I think a lot of people would find surprising. We only passed 300,000 in 2024. So that's quite a lot of people. We added, our growth rate doubled for the last 3 years from about 2% to nearly 4%. So that added tens of thousands of new people. And obviously you can't, we haven't not added that many houses. That would be basically adding like enough houses to house the people in Prince Albert. We know we haven't quite done that. And so what the city's done, happens to be a census year. So just to quickly explain, they've given a range of for our population. So it's 316,000, give or take 1,000 either way, because sometimes when you do a more methodological approach to counting population, as we see in the census, you can find that a more specific number. So, when they look at last year, they say between 4,600 and as many as close to 11,000 people were added, and that's last year alone. Now, that's quite a few people to add, even the low mark. So that's sort of what's driving this situation.
And how is this situation, this housing shortage, affecting people who are looking for homes right now?
Well, I spoke to Andriy Sterenchuk. He's immigrated with his family from Kiev, Ukraine, about 3 years ago. And he is renting right now. He's working as a bartender in the city, and he's, looking to buy. But I think, like a lot of people, he's looking at the prices and the limited inventory out there, and sort of just keeping an eye out.
Always like checking. So I prefer to be prepared, always. So this is not easy. And that apartments or that houses, what you have, it's pretty pricey, Anyway, I have experience from Ukraine, and I'm comparing with Ukrainian experience. And here price is really high, it's biting.
Yeah, so that's what Andriy had to say about his experience moving from a big city like Kiev and then coming to Saskatoon.
Okay, what impact had all of this had on prices for homes in our city?
Well, they've driven them up, which is ironic for some place like Saskatoon, which is still thought of as affordable, right? Well, the average price here rose to $418,000 last year, which is high. It's getting up there. It's much higher than Regina. So if you're looking at affordability now, Saskatoon is starting to be. Obviously, we're not as high as places like Vancouver or Toronto, but we're starting to get up there.
What does the future look like with housing and the housing market for us here in Saskatoon?
Well, I would recommend people look up because they're not expected to get any cheaper. In fact, the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation says that in 3 years, we will have passed Edmonton in terms of average home price, which is, in other words, we would be the second most expensive place on the prairies after only Calgary to buy a home. And they say that houses could rise like to $495,000. So just under $500,000 average home prices, just under $500,000. So I think that was pretty shocking to people. We've already passed Winnipeg last year, where the average home price in Saskatoon is higher than Edmonton or Winnipeg already. So we can see kind of the direction we're going here.
So what would it take to bring down prices or at least slow down this upward trend you're describing?
Well, building more houses is the only way to do that. But what we do know about population growth is that the population growth over the last 3 years was driven by immigration. We know at the federal level they've cut immigration. We know in Saskatchewan that the most recent report in the third quarter shows a population drop for the first time in some time. And we know that most of those immigrants and most of the growth in Saskatchewan is happening in mainly three places: Saskatoon area, Regina, and Prince Albert. So we should see some relief on the growth front. The city says it has enough, housing inventory and land for 2% growth rate over the next 2 or 3 years. We're probably not going to see that, but I guess it's difficult to say. With cuts to immigration, that's really our source of growth right now. So I guess we'll sort of see what happens.
And going back to Andre, what does he think now of his decision to move to our city?
Well, I'll let him speak for himself, but he's fallen in love with Saskatoon, despite the housing prices and one other issue that we're experiencing today.
Here, winter, it's beautiful. It's just fairy tale, but it's long. It's long, but this is a beautiful place. This is a beautiful place with amazing people. I love it. Like real pearl.
I've never heard anyone refer to Saskatoon as a real pearl,
Pearl.
I love the optimism.
Saskatoon is a real pearl. It's a beautiful place. But did poor planning lead to some of the problems we're seeing? Or was the growth just so quick, it was impossible for housing to keep up?
My name is Alan Wallace, and I am the planning director at Wallace Insights in Saskatoon.
Is there anything that could have been done to keep up with the rate of population growth so that we would have had that supply ready? I mean, was there any way to address this in a more proactive way?
Yeah, there's something called a lag, and it's about 2 years, actually. When you start to realize how fast the population is growing, it takes 2 years to get a project off, in the ground and basically built. So there's that lag. It's probably 2 to 3 years because of the planning at the front end and then the construction. And then, by the time you open, it's 3 years after a builder realizes how much growth is occurring. And yet the effects of population growth are immediate. The stress and on our infrastructure, on our services and so on, is felt almost immediately once growth starts to occur like this. We're looking at almost 4% growth, 3.9% on average, just over the last 3 years alone. So that's why we've exceeded 316,000 people. Is simply it happened over a very short time period. It started in like 23, I believe, where immigration really started to ramp up. But those projects that have started in 23 are just getting completed now.
So I think we are expecting growth to slow a bit because of changes to immigration. But what are you looking at in the years ahead? Will growth slow, or will we continue, do you think, growing as fast as we were?
Yeah, I created a chart when I was working at the city of Saskatoon. It looked at Saskatoon's growth over 100 years and went right back to the beginning. And we have had this remarkable growth rate. It's a steady, slow growth of 1% per year. You can go to the bank with that. Basically, we're going to grow 1%. But it was punctuated many times, actually, by these spikes. And, there were spikes a long time ago. There was a spike in 81 to 86. And now there's another spike here again. There was a spike in prices between 2006 and 2013. But this population spike right now is caused mainly by immigration. So 88%, in fact, of our net migration in the CMA comes from international immigration. So we're going to grow. Saskatoon is going to grow, and there is this understanding that when cities reach a certain size as well, they become a bigger magnet, and they become actually an economy unto themselves, and they grow even in periods of slow growth nationally. Cities like Saskatoon, like Calgary, like Edmonton continue to grow, and so will it increase? Will it decrease? Will it stay the same? It's going to decline. The amount of growth that we're seeing and the amount of population growth specifically is going to decline a little bit, and that's because the federal government has pulled back on the immigration numbers. But there's also this thing I call a leaky bucket. And the leaky bucket is the still have a net decline interprovincially. In other words, Saskatchewan continues to lose population to other provinces. Now, Saskatoon's net decline is interprovincially is a little lower, of course, but and we do remain a magnet for people within Saskatchewan that want to move to Saskatoon for job opportunities, because our economy is looking pretty good.
Well, continuing to use Edmonton as a comparison. So if our housing prices, if the average price of a home in Saskatoon is the same as Edmonton, how appealing is it to live in Saskatoon? Like, I keep thinking, well, we don't have an IKEA. Edmonton has an IKEA, but how appealing is it to live in a place like Saskatoon if housing prices are on par with a city like Edmonton that technically does have more, it's a bigger city, it has more services.
Well, that's right. And Saskatoon is not too far behind in terms of services. I mean, we're a good-sized city. The thing we have to offer here is a quality of life that sometimes is missing in Edmonton. When it gets to a certain size, like over 1 million people, people find the commutes a lot longer. They find that they have less time for their family. They have less opportunity to, time is the greatest luxury. And we still have that great characteristic of getting across Saskatoon in 20 minutes, even though we've got a larger and growing city. The people that do come to Saskatoon are surprised at our house prices, and our house prices are high when you compare them to places like Edmonton. It's a function of demand. There's a strong demand here. So and jobs in Edmonton and jobs in Saskatoon are growing right now.
So what needs to happen now to make sure that there is housing available for everyone who wants to live here? You talked about how there's a 2-year lag, and so the projects that started in 2023 are maybe finishing up now, but to look ahead the next couple of years, what needs to help, push that housing boom forward a little bit?
Well, there's a few things. We've got two cities just to the north of us, about 5 to 10 minutes away. Martinsville and Warman are also growing. Couple of the fastest growing cities in Canada on a percentage basis, and they're going to continue also to grow. So there's the 3 communities that are growing. If you want to call us a tri-city area, that's not inaccurate. We are kind of a tri-city area now, and what needs to happen is we need to plan ahead. Long-range planning is important, and I think Martinsville, Warman, Saskatoon have all done a pretty good job at long-range planning. Saskatoon, I'm more familiar with, and in particular, has done a good job since 1966 of planning ahead. And there's a growth plan to 500,000, which has served us really well. As everyone knows, bus rapid transit is a part of that. But planning ahead is a very important thing, and ensuring that builders have options to build and they're not running into obstacles. So right now, it does take quite a while, 2 to 3 years, to get a project off the ground. But if we lengthen that too much, we'll become very difficult to meet, the next growth spurt that we experience. Regional planning is something that also Saskatoon and Warman, Martinsville, the R.M. McCormick Park, and the town of Osler have adopted a regional plan. They adopted that back in 2021. And that was to plan ahead for development to a population of 1 million. It seems almost crazy to think that way, that we would be talking about 1 million. But that's the kind of long-range planning that's needed to ensure that we always have a residential supply that meets demand.
Will we or should we see housing closer to the university? There's some land there that I know we've talked about over the years. I also think about the Wildwood Golf Course because that's come up as a potential place for housing. What are your thoughts on those two locations in the city?
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up. In particular, the University of Saskatchewan's endowment lands, they're called. It's 1,000 acres, and it's a transformational project. It was proposed way back in 2005. But they are now getting close to putting some shovels in the ground. I understand that the parcel at the corner of Sutherland, which has been vacant for many years, is the first to get going. The University land is transformational. I say that because I'm not aware of another city in Canada that has 1,000 acres of infill land that is ready to be developed. Very, very rare to find that kind of development available to a city. And what that does for us, for Saskatoon, is you can shape that development around the rapid transit system. You can build the forms of housing that are in demand, and you can provide for a single family all the way up to high-rise development on that kind of land. So that is a key for Saskatoon, and I think it's a little bit off the radar. It gets talked about occasionally, but it hasn't really hit the public's mind, and it should fairly soon, because they're going to start to see development occur in those areas. And you're right, infill. Let's talk about infill. Saskatoon, like Regina, like many places in Canada, have struggled to meet infill targets. 25% is the target. We struggle to reach 12% in a given year. I think that's the average, is about 12% of all development is actually in infill locations. That number should rise with the University of Saskatchewan endowment lands, but also other opportunities like the Wildwood Golf Course. The Wildwood Golf Course, if you look at it today, is not the most efficiently designed golf course, that's for sure. And golf, remains a popular sport, but I think you need 18 holes at that location. Probably not. I think there's, like you look at Greenbrier with 12 holes. If the opportunity was to sort of balance things out a little bit and use that development or that land along 8th Street, let's say you take the front 80 meters or 100 meters of depth along 8th Street, and freed it up as development land, you would have enough land left over for a nice 12-hole golf course. And that satisfies two pressing needs within the community. One, to keep that amenity there for recreation purposes, for open space purposes. And the other need is to, respond to that bus rapid transit corridor, which runs right down 8th Street. You want to minimize, for rapid transit to be successful, you want to minimize the amount of frontage that is underutilized or open space. So I think there's an opportunity there. I know that Councillor Jeffries raised that, and it created some reaction. But I think when you look at the big picture, it actually makes some sense.
I know it's difficult for anyone trying to buy a house right now when you look at the state of things in Saskatoon, but overall, what are the benefits of living in a city that's growing?
Well, you're going to be close to employment. Saskatoon has, shown that it grows because of jobs. We create jobs here, and not just jobs in mining, but a diversity of jobs, having, like the provincial university here. And many, many other opportunities. That's going to continue to grow, so you'll be close to employment. Saskatoon is an attractive city as well. Many people that visit here have never been here before. Are always, the first thing they say is they realize Saskatoon was so attractive. It is an attractive city with our downtown and our riverbank and the Wassam Valley trail system and so on. There's a quality of life here that people appreciate, and we're also close to some of the best lakes in Canada. 2-hour drive, and you're up in, north of PA and into absolutely beautiful lake country. So lots of things, lots of reasons to live in Saskatoon or choose Saskatoon as your home. But we are also at the same time competing with those mid-sized cities in Canada that are also vying for the youth of this country and the talent of this country. We have to be cognizant of the fact that we got to maintain that quality of life so that people not only come here to work, but they come here to stay, and they call this their home. So, we're competing with the Victorias of the world, the Oshawas, Bramptons, Halifax, those types of centers are in competition with Saskatoon for Canadians. On balance, we still have some affordability that we can offer, and I think it's still when you look at owning a home, I think Saskatoon is a pretty fine option compared to some other places.
Alan Wallace is the planning director for Wallace Insights in Saskatoon. How is the housing crunch affecting you? Are you trying to buy a home? Will you be able to? Send us an email. This is sk@cbc.ca. We'll be back Friday with a hot take on politics. Be sure you're following This is Saskatchewan on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss an episode. I'm Leisha Grabinski. We'll talk to you soon.